Hi, I'm Joan Goodchild, Editor-in-Chief of CSO, and welcome to another edition of Security Sessions, where we talk about trends and topics important to security managers. Today we're going to be speaking with Michael Davis. He's CTO of Counterattack, and our subject today is going to be about machine learning and why CSOs need to care about machine learning. First, I'd like to thank Michael for joining us. He's joining us today from his home office in Chicago. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about Counterattack to start.
Oh, thanks. Counterattack, we provide a capability within our software that does behavioral analysis for security events and malicious activity on endpoints to help CISOs kind of detect when malicious attackers have taken over machines.
And tell us a little bit about your work with our topic today. What is machine learning and how does Counterattack have a part of that?
So we're actively involved. We've been doing machine learning-like algorithms and technologies for about 3 or 4 years now. It's pretty much a common phrase now, but when we started, it was not. And we leverage a type of machine learning called behavioral analysis, which leverages similar algorithms and components. So we've had the fortune of having to work with our clients on how do they handle the large amounts of data required to do machine learning, and which I really think that's the big problem we'll talk about today, which is the data required for machine learning and how you secure that.
Sure. And also, we should make it clear, too, about how this pertains to security. How is this being used in security? You know, why would a CISO be involved in using machine learning on the job?
That's a great question. I think there's two areas. One, the security products that we just kind of mentioned are starting to use machine learning techniques and approaches to help solve the security issue. But I think the other problem that really isn't talked about too much is actually what's done outside the security organization. The marketing teams, IT, all these other organizations that are being supported by the CISO are bringing in technologies that leverage artificial intelligence, machine learning, et cetera. And if you're not prepared to understand how to secure those approaches and technologies, you're going to be stuck with adding additional risk to the organization that you don't need to add.
And so how do you address that? I mean, obviously, this pertains to different departments beyond just security. So, you know, what is a CISO to do in this, when it comes to this and using these analytics and really kind of understanding that data?
Well, I think the word you mentioned there, analytics, is key. I think that's where we're starting to see the biggest jump is in analytics of all type. And analytics requires data, right? And so this goes back to, even though we're using math and fancy algorithms and things like that, the software in general that implements machine learning and artificial intelligence require a lot of data. And so as a CISO, you have to protect that data. So it goes back to the common things that you may be ignoring in a lot of organizations, like data classification, data sprawl, and then good old user access rights and permissions to the data itself, right? Who has access to it, when, where, and for how long? Putting those in place can greatly reduce the risk that these algorithms can bring into the organization. Also, outside that, training is another key one. I see there's a lot of free training out there for IT staff, for CISOs, Coursera, a bunch of other free open source training capabilities on what is machine learning, how does it work. You don't even have to do the deep stuff that requires the math. Just understanding what the components are and why those components exist will help you understand how to build a security architecture around these products that are coming into the environment.
So why is this necessary? I mean, what is the risk involved without the proper training? I mean, what are we talking about here if folks aren't properly trained to understand this?
Well, if you think about it, you're starting to put all your critical data, analytics, for example, maybe it's business intelligence analytics or financial, or even what users are doing on their systems, into one big central spot. And then we're running analysis and algorithms on top of it. If we don't secure that, we're essentially centralizing all of our core data for the attacker. Right? We give them one spot they have to break into, one simple set of software that they have to violate. If they get through that, they get access to everything. And so the key here is that for these the benefits for machine learning to be seen by the organization, you have to centralize the data. And I think that's the biggest risk. And then secondly, a lot of the software that's being purchased that implements these algorithms don't have all these security controls built in. So you're having to build some of these yourself or implement them in unique ways that maybe the original vendor of the software didn't anticipate or design it for.
Right. Now, how would that message be different from one department to another? I mean, we touched on this a little bit, but how does a CSO or security manager or another person who's concerned about the risk aspects of this take this message into different parts of the organization?
Well, I think the key about the message is what data are we analyzing and why, right? It goes right back to the data discussion. So there's certain things that these software are going to analyze. It could be marketing information. It could be, analytics around business or financials, whatever it may be. And you got to look at what's the criticality of that data if it got out. What is the criticality of that data if it's accessed by somebody who shouldn't? And there's even a third case, which is a lot of these organizations are doing this as a cloud service. So you're giving your data and moving it outside the organization, and you're commingling it in many times with many other companies' data. And so if you're commingling it with other companies, maybe even competitors, what kind of security controls does the vendor have to prevent the capability that somebody on their side is accessing that data as well? So you've got kind of these three different areas that you have to be spending your time. And most of my experience shows that when you start communicating that, hey, talking to the marketing team about where the data is going and who's accessing it and why, they start really understanding, okay, this is a little bit bigger problem than just, what math algorithms are being used and what the value of the software is. It's really who has access to what data.
And I want to touch upon another point that you made earlier, too. You mentioned that a lot of the training here is available through open source free resources here. That's a big, important word that a lot of, I know, security folks' ears would perk up when they hear that. So this is essentially a problem that you can almost solve for free?
I agree 100%. Yeah, we all joke about Reddit, but Reddit actually has a great machine learning, Reddit group on there that posts all kinds of videos. There's additional things you can learn. This has pretty much been built by open source folks, right? Free tools and free techniques on how this machine learning and artificial intelligence works are available all over the internet. And even if you do want to spend some money, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars. Simple, as I mentioned, Coursera courses and things like that are very inexpensive. You're talking a couple $100s, and you've got a 6-week course on how this technology works.
Interesting. And when we were talking about this earlier, too, you said there's a lot of bold claims being made in this space and kind of a lot of FUD. Can you speak to that just a bit more?
Sure. I think machine learning and artificial intelligence are probably two of the biggest hyped buzzwords right now. The reality is that they're math. They're approaches to analyzing known data. So they're only as good as the information you feed it. So it's the old problem, garbage in, garbage out. And a lot of vendors, even in the security space especially, if you go to any of the conferences, you see machine learning plastered all over the marketing messages everywhere. And the reality is, as a CISO, you have to understand how to evaluate these products. If you don't understand how the algorithms work or how the technology functions at a high level, it's very difficult to determine the efficacy of these products. Do they work in the situation you need? Are they reducing the risk that you're looking to reduce? And a lot of times you'll see vendors saying, oh, machine learning, we solve all your problems 100%. It doesn't work that easily, right? And so I think you have to understand a little bit underneath the covers to be able to make sure that you're not getting bamboozled with some new software just because it has a fancy name on it. A lot of times machine learning and artificial intelligence are providing an edge, but they're providing an edge in certain use cases. And so as a CISO, you're kind of accountable for making sure that those use cases are the ones you actually have. We've seen situations where companies have bought products, bought technology, assuming it's going to solve a certain risk that they have, and they realize that much later, and sadly, usually too far down the road, that it's not going to solve that risk. It was really just an edge case for that vendor, or maybe not something they fully support today. This is still a very, very nascent and early stage technology for many security companies.
Great. Well, we'll be continuing to keep an eye on it. And for now, I'd like to thank Michael Davis of Counterattack for joining us today. Thank you, Michael.
Great. Thank you for having me.
And for more on machine learning and analytics and other information in this space, please spend some more time here on CSO Online. I'm Joan Goodchild, and thanks for joining us today.